Καλημέρα. Γεια σας. Είναι μεγάλη χαρά που παρουσιάζουμε τον Νικολάι Νικίτιν, τον Νίκη για τους πολλούς του φίλους που έχει και στην Ελλάδα πια. Αρκετούς και ελπίζω θα κάνει και άλλους αυτές τις μέρες. Ο Νικολάι Νικίτιν είναι καταρχήν ο delegate, ο αντιπρόσωπος της Μπερλινάλε, του Φεστιβάλ Βερολίνου, για την κεντρική και ανατολική Ευρώπη, την κεντρική Ασία, τον Καύκασο και τη Φιλανδία. Δηλαδή είναι ο Αλέξης Γρίβας για όλες αυτές τις χώρες, αλλά έχει ένα ενδιαφέρον για το ελληνικό σινεμά και έχει υποστηρίξει πολλές ταινίες, τα τελευταία χρόνια ιδιαίτερα. Πριν από αυτό και παράλληλα, για τα τελευταία 13 χρόνια, είναι επίσης καλλιτεχνικός διευθυντής του φεστιβάλ Film Plus, το οποίο είναι το μόνο φεστιβάλ κινηματογράφου που ξέρουμε που είναι μόνο για μοντέρ και για το μοντάζ. Είναι κάτι άλλο που κάνει. Και το τρίτο που κάνει, και είναι ο λόγος που είναι εδώ για να σας παρουσιάσει, είναι ότι είναι ο ηθήνων νους και ο ιδρυτής του ΣΟΦΑ, που είναι ένα καινούριο training πρόγραμμα, το μόνο, από όσο ξέρω, που είναι για όλους που δεν είναι σκηνοθέτες ή παραγωγοί ή σεναριογράφοι. Δηλαδή, είναι ένα training στα πλαίσια του ΕΑΒ, κατά κάποιο τρόπο, για ανθρώπους που ασχολούνται με τη χρηματοδότηση, με τη διανομή, με ανθρώπους που δουλεύουν σε κρατικούς ή άλλους οργανισμούς. Δηλαδή, για όλους που βρίσκονται γύρω από μια ταινία, είτε πριν γίνει, είτε αφού τελειώσει, που είναι ιδιαίτερα σημαντικό για εμάς τους παραγωγούς. Νονός, βέβαια, του ΣΟΦΑ και προστάτης του Νίκη και μπαμπάς του είναι ο Ντίτερ Κόσλικ, που πέρσι γνωρίσατε όλοι εδώ, στην συγκλονιστική του ομιλία. Και ο Νίκη θα μας μιλήσει για το πρώτο training που έγινε του ΣΟΦΑ. Μόλις ολοκληρώθηκε η πρώτη φορά που έλαβε χώρα. Τι κάνουνε, πώς το κάνουνε, γιατί νομίζω ότι όλοι τραβάμε τα μαλλιά μας κάθε μέρα μεταξύ μας, με τη διανομή, προφανώς με τη χρηματοδότηση, αλλά και αφού καταφέρουμε να κάνουμε την ταινία. Τι γίνεται, πώς θα γίνει, ποια είναι η διανομή, πώς αλλάζουν τα πράγματα. Υπάρχει και ένα πάνελ το απόγευμα για την ελληνική διανομή που φαντάζομαι ότι είναι σχετικό με όλα όσα θα πούμε. Και νομίζω ότι ίσως έχει ένα μεγάλο ενδιαφέρον να δούμε πώς μπορούν και οι άνθρωποι που κάνουν τη διανομή ή τη χρηματοδότηση σε αυτές τις τελείως διαφορετικές συνθήκες που ζούμε πια, να σκεφτούν άλλους τρόπους για να μπορέσει να επικοινωνηθεί η ταινία και να φύγει από τον παραγωγό και από τον filmmaker και να φτάσει στο κοινό, στα φεστιβάλ και οπουδήποτε αλλού πρέπει να φτάσει. Νίκη.
Amanda, thank you very much. Kalimera? Kalimera. First of all, thanks a lot to the organizers. I feel very honored and proud to be here. Being originally Russian, I always somehow feel connected to my Greek friends. Maybe it's religion. It's also great to be in a conference with such established speakers as Savina, Jacques, and Simon, as my own experience in those training programs and looking what you guys have been setting up were the inspiration to do so far. Before I'm gonna talk about it, I just want to show you a short video we made, a kind of making of, so you're gonna get an impression what we were doing the second half of August in Wrocław in Poland. So I'm just gonna roll it.
I want to build an audience for art house cinemas.
I want to theatrically distribute documentary films.
I want to make Transordra, a moving cross-border film festival.
We want to make an educational program with the final result of high school film festival.
I want to promote Bulgarian films and industry.
I want to create a place where filmmakers can make creative short films.
I want to make TIFF studio workshops.
I want to make National Film Museum in Ukraine.
I want to make an art house cinema.
Dzień dobry and a warm welcome here on my sofa. SOFA, the School of Film Agents, is a new and unique initiative to train young and dedicated people who daily support, discover and promote cinema.
Those people really need the help of the industry, because otherwise all these films that are produced will never reach in the end the audience.
invited really outstanding tutors. This group of experts were working on a day-to-day basis with the participants, mainly more than 10 hours.
We go deep down to the core, to the bones of the project, and really try to help them to develop it in the best possible direction.
Film agents are people that very much have to work on their own and to learn on their own and from experience, but there are no really training initiatives for them.
The participants learn to become resistant and persistent in their ideas. They learn to handle with different types of expertise so that they can concretize their project.
Criticism is the breakfast of the champions. So we had a nice long breakfast over the whole day.
The tutors, I'm shocked, I would say. Actually, when you are a beginner in this field, you have to search for these concrete people at the festivals.
They are strengthening my thoughts that I really have to do it in Romania.
In our country, we have no specialists like we have at SOFA.
I have already learned more than in these past few years.
I started to rewrite the whole project.
They are working really hard, meeting people, talking to people, but also meeting themselves and talking to themselves about the project.
It's very important to get a kind of a group dynamic.
It's a really comfortable team to work with, and having really good feedbacks, really good advice, and everybody's like supporting everybody.
We are very alike somehow, because in other contexts, when we are at home, we are kind of unique, and here it's like everybody is almost trying to do the same. Yeah. It's different projects, but somehow they have the same goals.
If I understood properly the project, it is about cloning people. For example, cloning Roman Gutek or cloning Nikolaj.
Now, the main task of the participants will be to go back to the country of origin and try to find the needed support so their dream project can come true.
These 2 weeks, I hope, I think, I am even sure that will be very fruitful for participants.
You might ask yourself, but does this concept work? Definitely, yes.
SOFA is about helping to fill a gap in the market.
And I found SOFA to be the ideal platform to research and to develop ideas.
Innovation. That is the first word that actually describes SOFA, innovation. SOFA is innovation.
So, SOFA, School of Film Agents. First of all, maybe I explain what we understand after film agents. As I said, I was born in Russia, back then Soviet Union, area code 007. I felt always like a little bit like the James Bond in the film industry. Now, I mean, traveling around Central and Eastern Europe almost now for 20 years, I realized that there's great cinemas, as you all know, the Romanian wave, Georgia, kicking off right now. We had in Berlin 5 films in competition. Out of the 8 bears, 4 went to the east. But what is a big lag in Central Eastern Europe, Central Asia and Caucasus, the countries we include, is, let's say, film infrastructural institutional measures. During communist time, basically everything was done the old way. People went to the Ministry of Culture, they got money, and that's it. So if you look at that country, let's say France and Germany, where there's so many possible and alternative ways to finance your film, to promote your film, to go to different film schools, film commissions, not to talk about film archives, film educational programs also. My firm belief is that, of course, it's important to support filmmakers, to support producers, so let's say the films are done and produced, but I believe also very much that it's important to support all the people who work around with cinema, not only, let's say, present the finished film in a good, well-visited film festival, but, for example, also to archive it. There's a big question right now going on with the whole digitalization. How are we going to save our cultural heritage? What is the best way to keep a national cinema alive. The further east you go, Jum, you know this, there's very often a situation that you basically have only one source of financing film. It's very often strictly and very strongly connected to the government. So let's say it's a cultural minister who gives the film support. If you're a young filmmaker in that country, you want to make your first or second film, often that films that, let's say, interest us from the other side as festivals are films which are touching contemporary social issues, so they're not necessarily the films that the government wants to support. Basically you're out. So if you're not liked by the state nomenclatura, there's no way for you basically to do your films. Of course you can go into co-productions, but the idea was really to strengthen this whole infrastructural institutional system. And what I realized, the problem in many countries is that if you live in Romania, if you live in Bulgaria, Serbia, Georgia, there's nobody you can turn to in your own country to learn from, first of all. Secondly, and many of you know this, that people who are by now, let's say, very successful in the film industry, running big organizations, festival, funding bodies, were, let's say, never properly trained for the job they are doing. When I went with Dieter to Wrocław for the press conference, and we had very many talks about Sophie, he said, Niki, you are right with this idea, because basically Dieter is doing for 30 years jobs which he was never trained to. And I remember when 12 years ago he asked me to be his man in the East, like Alexis, yes, like you said, advising for the film selection. I asked Dieter, okay Dieter, so what do I do? How do I proceed? And he said, but Niki, I don't know, I just started myself, figure a way. So I think that all of us did a great job, of course, learning by doing, but the idea was like, why not to institutionalize it in a way that not the same common mistakes. Whenever you set up a film festival, a film fund, a training initiatives, usually in the beginning you do the same common mistake that everybody is doing. So why not get the experts who have already done this for a couple of years? And I would never say that we know the golden way, or let's say that the Western way, the way Germany, France, Italy is handling things, it's right, but at least there's a knowledge there. The other thing is, as you know, in our field, it's a lot about contacts, it's a lot about knowing the right people. And I had some role models, some examples, people maybe you know, there's a great guy in Georgia, Tudor Giorgio, who 12 years ago established the Cluj Transylvania Film Festival, which is by now one of the key leading, what did I say? Georgia. Sorry, Georgia is so much on my mind, Georgia, okay. Romanian film festival, always very connected to the new Romanian wave. He then set up the Romanian film promotion, something like UniFrance, to promote Romanian cinema. He was head of the national television, and I remember that Tudor, when he started out, he was chasing people like Dieter Koslik, Marion Döring, me. He was seeking advice, but let's say he needed to go out, so he needed to invest a lot, to travel to Berlin, to travel to Cannes, to travel to Venice, run behind Barbera, all those people, getting information, ask them, you know, like for help. And of course, probably most of you, you're all very sharing people, especially the ones in the first row. So you are very happy to give advice once you meet somebody with a nice idea, but all our time is limited, and it's also sometimes difficult to access us. So the idea was basically very simple. Having myself done EAVE, which was really one of the greatest experiences, I said, why not to model it a little bit like EAVE? So we were looking basically for young, talented, energetic film agents from Central Eastern Europe, Caucasus, and Central Asia, who applied with a unique idea for their country. So we asked them, listen, you come from Romania, Georgia, Bulgaria, make an analysis, what is missing in your country? And it can be that you, let's say, copycat an already existing idea in your neighboring country, but what is good for your country? And just maybe to give you an example, I mean, they already briefly described it in the video, who were our participants. So we had Melinda from Romania, who works close with the TIFF Transylvania Film Festival, and they acquired a building in in Cluj, which is important also to know that it's not Bucharest, so it's not the capital. And the idea is to fill this building with a year training program for film lovers. So it's not so much to train professionals, but it's really to train the normal audience in terms of watching movies, understand more what movies is about, and especially, and that we realized was a big topic in many films, how you build your audience, how you build audience development, how do you get the audience back to the cinema. Probably most common problems focusing Central and Eastern Europe is that there was a big cinema death after the collapse of communism. During communist time, everything was state supported. Here also Romania as an example. They had 400 screens. Now they are down to 40. People like Cristi Mungiu winning the Palme d'Or went back to Romania for 3-2. They couldn't show the films because there were no cinema, so they started doing this traveling things, you know, renting a truck, going to the little cities, building up the screens, showing the films. We are about to lose in those countries the whole generation to VOD, to iPads, iPods, what are they all called, and the firm belief is that if we don't grab them when they are young and we let them go to the cinema, I don't know, at the age of 5, 6, 7, as a teenager, they will not be used to go to the cinema. Nobody's going to start going to the cinema at 25 or 35 when they didn't have this experience. So that was the Romanian project. From Hungary, which you know is in a very difficult political situation. We had Gabor, who runs a small distribution company, and he came up with the idea of setting up an internet platform, which is a little bit like what we have in the Netherlands already, We Want Cinema, that you as, let's say, a cinema lover, but as a normal audience, you can book a screening of your favorite movie. Let's say you always wanted to see Casablanca on the big screen, or you wanted to see the latest Bellatar because you missed it on the big screen, so you can order a screening, you buy a ticket, and then over all those social networks, Facebook, Twitter, you inform all your friends. So this is a way for him to prolong the life of European films in the cinema, to make film available again, which maybe had only 2 weeks in distribution and didn't really work, and it's planned as a Central Eastern European project, so he wants to start out with Hungary, but then very fastly to go to the neighboring countries. We had Katie from Georgia with a great project to do an art house cinema in Tbilisi. Georgia has a population of 5 million people. They used also to have 120 cinema in the communist time. Now they are down to 3 cinemas. 3 full-year running cinemas. They are all in one hand, so it's a monopoly, and they show 80% American movies and some, let's say, local Georgian blockbusters. So there's no possibility in Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia, to see European or even world art house cinema. So she wants to set it up, and having there, we realize how important it is for her to have expertise from, let's say, outside, from other countries, because she cannot turn to anybody in Georgia. We had Liana from Tallinn, Estonia, whose idea is to set up an alternative distribution form for Estonian documentaries, because funny enough there's a quite high production because Estonian TV is very much investing in documentaries, but there's no way to show them theatrically. So she wants to build up an infrastructure where she is using not only existing cinemas but also alternative screening venues, cultural houses, libraries, and present Estonian documentaries there with the author to the audience. Also there you feel it's about making a cinema experience happening. We had Ivan from Kiev, Ukraine. Probably you know that during Soviet times basically Russia took everything away from Ukraine. Whenever I travel and they ask me, oh, so you're Russian, I love borscht. I always have to explain, excuse me, borscht is actually Ukrainian, it's not Russian. Also a lot of Ukrainian filmmakers were, let's say, taken by the Russian, by the Soviet system, and he wants really to build up a national Ukrainian film museum, and through that actually give back the Ukrainians, in a way, their cultural identity. We had the two Evas, that was the two charming girls you saw. That was an exception because they're such a good team players that we said we're gonna take two. And they want to do an international high school film festival, so they want to implement a selection process. They want to work with teachers, present them world art house cinema, so they also don't see only as teachers already, not only the American stuff, but some art house. And then together they develop a kind of system that the high school students can do as a project their own festival. So it's really bringing a festival experience, the whole work what festival is doing to them. We had Jan, a very young and active guy from Poland, who said that even so the Polish film industry is, let's say, is a very stable one at the moment, probably one of the most stable ones in Central and Eastern Europe, there's no support for short films when you're outside of the film schools. So he wants to set up a short film fund which wants to do up to 3 short films a year, and this fund is also open not only for young filmmakers but even established filmmakers who between maybe 2 big feature films want to do a short can turn there. We had Johannes Rixin, who some of you maybe know because he's a kind of already experienced German producer, works for Heimat Film, but his long-time dream is to set up a film festival along the Odra. The Odra is a river between Germany and Poland. It's an area which is, let's say, is culturally dead, so he wants to set up a traveling film festival along that border, in a way also to revive the cultural life there. We had Mira Staleva, who has already a long-time working experience for the Sofia Film Festival, and her project is, in my eyes, also one of the, let's say, prototypes we want to develop. She wants to set up a Bulgarian film promotion. So she wants to have an information center where, for example, I as a Berlinale selector can turn to and say, listen, I'm planning to come to Bulgaria, please can you help me up setting the screenings. I mean, it's all this work UniFrance is doing, having really a serious budget. You see how much French films are present all around the world, and in my eyes it is really strongly connected to have an institution that can give you all the information. Then whenever you do a retrospective on Bulgarian cinema, you just do 1 phone call and you got basically all you need. And we had Sonja from Serbia with Festival Box Office, and this is a project that is in a way not only unique for Central Eastern Europe, but it's even unique for the world. So maybe I'm going to explain this in a little bit more detail. It's the idea to set up a website which will follow the box office of art house films in the international festival circuit. We all know nowadays that it's becoming very, very difficult to sell your film theatrically to different territories, but many films do 50, 60, 75 festivals. Nobody ever came to the idea, which is funny, but it's really original, nobody did it, to account all these numbers. So let's say Guillaume, he produced in Bloom, it did probably 50 festivals until now. Of course, it's sold to some countries theatrically, but imagine Guillaume has from each festival the exact numbers, how many people were in that screening, and he, for example, can present for the next media or Eurimages application the fact that, listen, I did in Bloom, besides winning all those awards, unfortunately we only sold it theatrically to maybe 4 or 5 territories, but we did 75 festivals. In some of the festivals there were 2,000-3,000 admissions, so actually we had maybe 100,000 admissions worldwide to this film. And then the idea behind this is, of course, to maybe one way to change the classical way of thinking that a film is only successful if it's really sold and released theatrically. I'm sure that if a film like In Bloom, which is great, is going to be released in a small territory, it might even make less admissions with an official cinema distribution that it does in a festival. So having all these numbers, first of all, as a producer, you can use them to do maybe better funding applications. But also, of course, it's great for a director and a producer to realize, okay, this film, that topic, that director, that style worked really well, let's say, in the Arab world, worked really well in the Asian world, worked in Latin America. So it's also an idea to be able to really analyze the markets in which films are performing where. So this were the 10 projects we scouted and invited. The participants had 2 tough weeks in Wrocław, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the schedule. The idea was that we had 2 main tutors who you saw also in the video. One of them is a very experienced journalist, and the other one, Eva Pszynska from Opus from Poland, is a very experienced producer who did a lot of co-production. Her latest movie, Ida, was just in Toronto successfully and won the National Film Festival in Gdynia. And I asked those 2 tutors to be all the time with us and to work with the participants on the projects. So my colleague Oliver, the journalist, was shaping in a way the concept paper, so that everybody had to send in a 2-page description of the projects and a budget. And as you know, sooner or later, they're going to be in the situation where they go back to the country of origin and they want to finance it. So whoever they talk to, they need to send in a paper and they need to send in a budget. So Oliver was constantly those 2 weeks working with them how to improve the idea in a really good presentable concept paper. And Eva was working with them on the budgets, and believe me, of course, everybody, and this is like the experience I often have, the budget were way too low, because talking about their own salaries, they said, no, but what do you mean I should put myself in with a salary? It's my dream project. I want to make it happen. It's like, it's not ethical to work to earn money with my project. So we really had to tell them, no, you put your own budget. And really, especially running for something like a cinema, don't only account for what it means to screen a film. Are you aware of the electricity bill? Are you aware of the water bill? Are you aware that you need somebody to clean the cinema each day after screening? So those little facts were worked on. So these were the 2 tutors we had there. Then we had 2 special guest experts. One of them, Sibylle Kurz, who maybe many of you know. She's called, let's say, the queen of pitch in Europe. So Sibylle presented, the project was presented to Sibylle, and she worked with the participant on a good way to present it to the audience, to present it to them when they are back in the country, to their local possible financiers, a cultural minister, a city mayor. And towards the end we did it, and this is also a little bit taken from Meavel, we did a presentation of all the projects to the local guests and to the experts we invited. And we had a great guy coming from Paris, Renaud, who has nothing to do with cinema. He runs a business school. So he was really very clearly analyzing with them the ideas in terms of market analysis, in terms of knowing the market, knowing the competitors. And there the main idea came out is that many of the participants were not really aware of the situation they are in clear enough. And he really told them that the most important thing for them is to collect data and to be really aware how to position their projects. And besides that, we had 10 guest experts. So basically for each project that we had, we selected one European well-known expert who works, let's say, as close as possible to that field the project is going to be realized in. So all the experts did a short case study, a short presentation who they are, and then they had longer one-to-one meetings with the participants sharing their knowledge. Besides that, we organized 2 public panels with some of our guests, and we had a very nice thing that each second evening the participants had to present the national cinema to the group and to the public in Wrocław. So for example, the Romanian participant did like a half hour where she showed some clips, some short films, and explained a little bit about their national cinematography from a very personal point of view. And just briefly about the outcome, because of course it was a risk. We didn't know, will it work, how will it work. We are very happy to see that there was a very strong energy going on in between the group. So what we can say as a first fazit is that the participants didn't only profit from the tutors who came in, but actually they also profited along from each other. And as the two Evas mentioned in the video, they felt in a way very relieved that they are not the only crazy people in their country, but that in other countries there's also people who so much believe in an idea and they really want to make something happen. Because this is also my experience in travels. Sometimes, especially in small territories, you meet somebody who's very energetic, but who feels a little bit lost because he thinks it's like no way they can make the projects happen. And the nicest thing was that actually everybody said that all this input made them more believe and really showed them a vision and a way how to do their project. And probably in the next 2 years, 3 of the 4 projects are going to happen for sure. And in a way, of course, we also monitor the projects, so we keep in touch with them, the tutors keep in touch with them, and maybe next year I can give you even an update who is already up and running. Amanda?
Υπάρχουν ερωτήσεις? Η κυρία Βέρου.
Hello. So it's a very nice initiative. Thank you for that. I wanted to ask you if how do you do the submissions work, and how Greece fits in all of that, and how Greece is fitting in all of that, and if. Thanks.
It's nice to see that so many people of you are sitting in red chairs that are almost the same the ones you saw in the video. So the submission was basically very easy. And to be honest, in the first year I was very active going out there. So I was scouting actively. I was talking to people who I knew, and I was talking to, let's say, my contacts in those countries. So everybody was supposed to give in a paper, so at least two pages description and a preliminary budget, and I managed to see a lot of applicants personally, because that was my thing. I said I need to see everybody who wants to apply with a good project to be like sure to understand would they fit into the group and would they fit into the workshop. And just for a silly reason, but it's something that I learned from other projects, do they actually speak proper English? Working for the Berlinale, I remember the first years of the Berlinale Talent Campus. You might know this initiative. I'm sure Dieter talked about it last year. The thing is that you had to do all the application in English, and the whole workshop, of course, in the Berlinale Talent Campus, everything is in English. And we had people coming from, let's say, Azerbaijan, Armenian, where the brother filled in the application in English, the person arrived and didn't speak a single word of English. I mean, in the talent campus where it's like now 300 people, this is manageable. For me, it would have been a disaster having somebody not talking English. So I wanted to meet the people to also, let's say, grab an energy, because of course it's project developed, it's a workshop to develop projects, but I also, for me, it's a lot about developing, let's say, a personality, in terms that it's really somebody who has the energy, the drive, and let's say the idea. So I was always saying, if that person is able to convince me within 15-20 minutes that that project is necessary and needed, and that person is the person who can make it happen, they will also have the drive and the energy to convince the people within their country. About the Greece situation, that's of course a very good question. So we started out really being focused on Central Eastern Europe, Central Asia and Caucasus, because this is, let's say, the post-communist territory, and of course running it for the first time, the budget was also limited, and I wanted to have it, let's say, in a cultural area where I'm also familiar with the situation. Being here, experience all this, I can say I'm very open for applications from Greece. Somehow I feel very much that Greece, I would grab it rather to the Balkans than to the other part of Southeast Europe. And if there's anybody here who has a project like described, please talk to me, get one of our leaflets where the contact is in, and I would say it's, I cannot promise that we're gonna pick up Greece, but if there's a interesting project, we have the means to be open enough to adjust.
Or it can be a project adapted to Greece.
Yes.
Erotisis, questions?
Costs? Okay.
Where did you get the money? How much did the participant? Can you repeat?
Okay. So we had a budget of 150,000 euros. We got quite lucky because, as I mentioned, Poland has a quite good situation, so the Polish Film Institute was very supportive from the beginning on, and we're doing it in the city of Wrocław, which is going to be 2016 the European cultural capital. So we have 1/3 of the budget already secured for the next 3 years. The other sponsors and money funding people were basically Polish and international institutions. There's, for example, the Visegrad Fund, which is focusing on projects between Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary. I got the local media program involved, so the Media Desk Poland, not Media Brussels. Goethe Institute from Krakow, because they are responsible for Wrocław. Luckily, also my own local film fund, the Film and Media Stiftung NRW from Düsseldorf. We got a lot of in-kind support also. And for me, from the beginning on, it was very important to have it completely free for the participants. So we gave a complete full ride. They didn't have to pay anything. They just needed to come for 2 weeks, anything. We paid flight, accommodation. We are thinking, especially talking to some colleagues, maybe for the next years to ask the participants to pay their own travel, but giving them the advice how they can finance it and even have scholarships. Why for free? Because the moment, let's say, you go to countries like Georgia, Romania, to even finance a flight to Poland would be a 2, 3, 4 months salary. And I didn't want to be in the situation, let's say, where I can only pick people who can allow to come, because then it would be immediately, you know, I don't want to say the rich boys and girls, but would be rather people who are socially better off, and it would lose, let's say, this democratic open idea.
We have to end this. Πρέπει να τελειώσουμε γιατί το πρόγραμμα έχει καθυστερήσει. Ο Νίκη βέβαια θα είναι εδώ, οπότε θα είναι μεγάλη του χαρά να μιλήσει με οποιονδήποτε θέλει. Να πω μόνο ότι ελπίζω, όπως το έχουμε μάθει εμείς οι παραγωγοί και οι σκηνοθέτες και οι σεναριογράφοι, ότι δεν είναι ντροπή να μην ξέρεις, είναι καλό να πας να μάθεις. Θα ήταν πολύ ωραίο να το καταλάβουν και οι θεσμικοί, οι διάφοροι παράγοντες, λίγοι εκ των οποίων είναι εδώ. Ευχαριστούμε πολύ.
Thank you.